So we have started our broadcast already. So did you guys had a chance to read the question? Read the case?
All of us. I did.
I did
Okay.
too.
All right. So the first item that we will be discussing now, let me share my screen.
Okay.
So we have read about the case involving and out of Phil and Terry, and how he was able to handle the situation between these two employees. So let us first of all look at the legal constraints that we have in the case. Employment at will and exceptions. Do we understand by it? So starting from Jessica.
Yeah. What question did you want me to answer?
So can you help us to understand what it means by full and these exceptions in terms of a breach of implied contract?
Do you want me to read the slide? Is that what you want?
So you can just give your little understanding how what it means to have a breach of implied contract.
Okay. So from what I understood from the case, the employment at will thing was kind of the idea that at any time an employee or an employer could say, you're done. We don't want, unfire them or quit from the company. And so, like in the case, it talked about how there's been instances where the company has told the employee that they have 30 minutes to clear out their desk. And on the flip side, there's been people who they say typically they gave a 2-week notice, but there's been people who've walked out as well.
Okay. Corinne, do you have anything to say in terms of breach of implied contract?
As far as a breach of implied, so I guess the implied contract means that, like, when you're hired, that you're saying, that the employer, when you have an implied contract, it's like that you're saying that you are I don't know. So you have when you're employed, you have like a contract, right? So when you get hired, you're given a contract saying that this is the job that you're expected to do. This is the, what we expect from you, and this is what you expect from us. So I guess a breach of that would be that you are not doing what you basically, on one end or the other, what you said you were going to do.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Okay. So let us also look at some of the today, since we are now turning into law students, we have a lot of law kind of cases that we want to talk about. So breach of implied covenant and fair dealing. So Marilla?
Yes.
Can you help us to understand how breach of implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing goes on with in terms of disemployment.
If I can, okay. I'm sorry, I didn't finish to hear you. I heard half of the question. So is it what is on the screen? Is that what I need to answer?
Yes, yes. So what do you understand by the breach of implied covenant of
Breach of implied good faith and this could come into play. Okay, one second. Okay, I don't want to sound like I'm repeating myself, like I'm repeating Corinne. I'm copying Corinne. But yeah, like she says, it's like the fact that let's say you're gonna hire me to do something. I don't know. You're gonna hire me to be your nanny, and giving me the job, you require to wash bottles, to change diapers, to make food, to do this and this and that. But I am not really sticking to the contract. I'm not doing the things I supposed to be doing that actually I agreed. When you hire me, I said, yes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to wash the bottles. I'm going to change diapers. I'm going to cook for the baby. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But, and I agreed and I signed the contract saying that I was going to do it. But and then I just backed out and I'm not sticking to the contract. And if by doing that, you can terminate my services because I'm not sticking to the contract. Is that what you're asking?
Yes. So with a breach of implied contract, basically, let's say with the case that you brought in, I hired you as a nanny, but in an agreement, I try to avoid what we have agreed on for you to do. So let's say the payment, let's say payment for instance, I agree that I'm going to pay you $15 an hour, but after the hiring, I try not to pay you the $50. So that became a breach of an implied covenant of good faith and fair dealing.
Exactly. And if I can come in. So for example, you've said that okay, every Friday is your off day, since you are a nanny for me. And then probably maybe at every Friday, I still want you to work because I want to go to parties, I want to go this, I want to go that. And so you see that it becomes a breach of faith of what we have agreed was that I'm going to work for you, but every Friday is going to be my off day for me to also be able to do things. Probably maybe you are coming to work probably Monday throughout Sunday, but then Fridays will be left for you. And so if we agree, it's an agreement. Maybe sometimes we are all humans. There might be some inconvenience that you can ask me to stay and probably maybe work, but then it don't need to become an habitual something that every Friday you will still want me to stay over and then work, and then you will not even pay me for it. And so that becomes a breach of faith.
Okay. Thank you, Joseph.
Thank you, Joseph.
So let's look at the violation.
You're welcome.
Of public policy, as we read in the constraints. So with that one, basically, we are looking at a situation whereby an employer decided to terminate this an employee appointment because the employee decided to carry out some certain mandated duties, refuse not to agree with him on certain things. So that becomes the violation of the public policy. So in the case, we look at refusing to date one boss. So if I'm working under you and you want me to date you, if you terminate my appointment based on that, it is unlawful because you are violating a public policy. Yeah, you need not to, I need not to date my boss in any contract.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so with a discrimination statute, like what we
Ask a
discussed in our.
question. Let me ask a question based on.
Okay, Joseph.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, you can ask the question. I think.
Hello, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Yes, can I ask a question?
Yes, you can ask.
Okay, so basically, in regards, okay, the one that you were just reading, everybody's opinion on this. So, for example, I'm a young town as we
Joseph.
progress, maybe after a year or two, we develop feelings wrong for one to do that.
Yeah, your line was kind of breaking down, so we couldn't hear the earlier part of the question. Can you repeat the question again?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Did any of you get Joseph questions clearly?
No. Maybe he can
Let's
type it
continue.
for us.
When his line is his internet is back, I think we can still allow him to answer ask the question. So, like the discrimination, the ones that we have covered in the previous classes, talking about uh, race, national origin, gender, religion, and disability and age discrimination.
Okay, can you hear me now?
The line is still breaking up.
Joseph, can you type your question and we can read it?
Yes, that would be better. Okay, so now let's move on. So what should a manager do in the case of Terry? Hello, can you guys hear me?
I think it's
Hello?
Yeah, Marila, can you start?
sorry, this is Jessica. But so
Okay.
I was just thinking it's kind of a difficult decision to make, you know. Personally, I thought that the lady that was talking, I don't think it ever gave her name, but the one whose the perspective was in, you know, she was saying all these things, and that's great if it works for her, but it was very opinion based, you know, and sometimes those type of things don't work for everybody. I mean, everybody's different, and just because it would work for her doesn't mean it works for everybody else. But so I think she really needs to take a unbiased look at it personally, and not take in her own what she believes is best and what she believes is this. However, that being said, I did feel like Terry was probably someone that maybe should have been fired. It sounds like he was really below par, and that he was just there because the managers, the upper level management, wanted him there because they were friends. And I don't think that's necessarily fair or what should happen. On the other side, what was the other guy's name? Phil?
Yes.
Phil sounds like he could be useful, and that he could have a place in the company. And so maybe she should try harder to make that happen for him.
Okay. Okay, so Marila, do you have something to talk about Terry and Phil, what the manager should do? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, so I'm asking, what should the manager do?
I'm sure I can be heard now.
I think that this manager is put into a difficult situation for both of the cases, but I think for sure Terry should be fired. I think that he was hired for the wrong reasons, and that he was kept employed for the wrong reasons. But she's also put in a difficult situation in the fact that he has gotten good reviews up until that point. So it makes it more difficult for her to fire him, because there is no backlog of him not performing, I guess, because the other manager was giving him better reviews than he deserved. So it sounds like maybe she needs to put him onto a review, whatever they called it. Was the P? Do you guys remember what was it called? The performance enhancement review.
Improvement plan, yeah. The PIP.
Performance improvement. Because then in that situation, I think that's the kind of situation that the performance improvement needs to be used for, because it's basically saying, we see that you're not doing your job. Here you go. Here's your opportunity to make it better. And then if he still can't make it better, then she has reasons to fire him.
Okay. Marila, do you have something to say?
No, I do agree with that. I really, actually, I gotta say that case was the only thing that I actually enjoyed and understood of that whole lesson thing. I don't know, this class is really hard for me. I don't understand anything. Most likely, like, this meeting helped me a lot to understand what's going on. But this case was really making sense to me. So I don't really have anything to add right now.
Okay, so the manager was put in an uncomfortable situation because the way Phil and Terry managed to get into the company, it wasn't. They didn't go through the actual recruitment process. Even the interview that they went through. As for Terry, he failed the interview, but because of he has people who are in a management position, let us allow him to come in. And because of these managers, they recommend these two gentlemen to come to the company. It becomes very difficult for the manager to review that will put them in a PIP plan, the performance improvement plan, so that they can build a case around it and fire them later.
Yeah, can I say something?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My came kind of late. I don't know. I think it's pretty annoying to know that you are the manager and you know that you can make decisions, obviously with others' approval, but you can make decisions and your decisions or your opinions are not being counted. Whether because you're 27 years old or whether because you just got into that position, job position. Um, if you've been put there to make a decision and you see that person is not working, that person is not helping you in the job title that person has, I think you have the right to make a right move and fire him. He's not doing what he's supposed to be doing. Even though he had recommended and he has worked there for a while, but with that time he already showed to others that he's not doing what he's supposed to be doing.
Yes. So with that thing, I think it is important that you can fire him as a manager, even you realize that they well to the standards. But this is also brings into question that you cannot just fire somebody. You have to build a case based on that case against that person before you were able to fire him. We're doing
Hear
the
me now.
yeah. You can hear me now.
You can hear me.
Actually have the performance improvement plan that when you are not performing, they rate you below the scale of 3.0, then they will put you in that performance improvement plan. And that means the next they are building a case about you that they can is to fire you later.
Okay, can you hear
So
me, Bartholomew?
yeah, we can hear you. So Joseph, can you talk ask your question again because we couldn't hear you.
Oh, okay. Let me give my contribution, then I'll give my question. And so basically, the feeling that comes with it, especially when you are in the position to fire people, okay. And then reading the case of Phil and Terry, for me, I know that Phil even has a little bit advantage over Terry, even though yes, probably they are not working. Their working grade has been termed as weakness. We know that Phil wasn't fired because the company bought the company that Phil was working, and so they didn't lay anybody off, and so they maintained them. And so basically, he's been working from that company. I feel in law, or maybe with a little bit of knowledge that I have, we know before one will be fired, cautions or letters of warnings will be served to that individual that hey, you need to set up. You are not doing this thing well. There's a possibility that it can lead to this, and so you have to set up very well. And so I think when all these things have gone into place and these people are still underperforming, then the company will know that okay. And so we are causing financial loss to the company. We are paying you salary, and they are not doing anything that is bringing profit to the company. And for that one, I'm sure they can actually fire them. But then, just as we said, they have to go by the contract that they have stated, how one can be fired, upon what basis. And so it's only when those bases are being drawn well, and then the individual now knows that yes, I'm being fired because I'm being slothful worker at work and not bringing any productivity, and then I'm being paid for. And so we can be paid for you to be playing around. And so basically, it was a very tricky question for me, even as I read it. But then I know that every company, every suitable company always have laws and procedures on how they lay off people. Either they fire them or that they give them some breaks. But the question I was asking was based on the violation of the public policy. That supposing I'm a lady, a young lady, and I work in the company, and then my manager is also a single married, and later we develop feelings. This is not sexual harassment in any form, but then we develop genuine feelings for each other, and then we decide to date. Is it wrong that's in terms of professionally that I'm dating my manager or something like that? That's what I was trying to bring, the question I was asking.
So Corinne, can you help us?
On that one, I think that might just depend on the company's policy, because I know that there's people in the world, you know what I mean, that in some companies that they date each other, but I think that it has to be made public and aware to, I mean, a lot of the times, at least that I've heard of, it has to be made aware to managers above that is taking place, so that it's not like a secretive thing and you're not getting special treatments for it. But if it's written into the company's policy that you can't date, then that would be a breach of the policy. So I think it all just depends on the company and what the company's policy is. I know that when my husband and we were dating, and we both got hired at the same place, and they knew that we were dating at the time, and they said we don't usually hire people that are in relationships, but they did anyway. So they knew, you know what I mean? One of us wasn't a manager over the other. We were both being hired into like the same position, but still, it was policy for them to not have people that were in relationships working together, but they knew it, and they went outside of their policy. The manager chose that it was okay in the circumstances. So I think it just depends on the company's policy.
Okay. Jessica, do you have
Awesome.
something to share? Okay,
Sorry.
I think Jessica.
Yeah, was Joseph trying to say something?
Yeah, I'm asking if you have something to share.
I already asked the question.
Okay. You're asking if I have what, Bartholomew?
Whether you have some information to share concerning the question that Joseph asked.
Yeah, I agree with Corey. I know that it makes it more difficult. They might have, like, you might be able to date people at your same level, but if you like date your direct supervisor, there could be bias there, and so the company policy might be like that. But I agree. I think it just depends upon the company, what they decide.
Okay. So Joseph, what I know is that for here in Ghana, especially with the banks, two people cannot be working there and started dating and get married. You are dating and you wanted to get married, one person must have to resign, because a lot of conspiracy usually begins from that. When the two people can conspire and be able to, do something harmful to the bank. So, in case you one person have to resign so that you can go ahead with your relationship. It depends on the company policy. Now, let us look at the financial obligation. What impact does Terry? What impact does Terry and Phil have on the company's bottom line?
Well, from what I can see, I mean, it sounds to me like they both are, or at least Terry especially, is kind of just draining on the company's bottom line, because he's not contributing anything. So they're paying a salary to him, but he's not bringing in any revenue by his work that he's doing. Like, he's not improving the company or moving them forward. So basically, he's taking away from the company's bottom line. Phil, it sounds like he does some work, but it sounds like he could be replaced with someone who did more work, which would be more productive and would give, in the long run, would be more money for the company.
Okay. Marilla?
Mm-hmm. Do I go with the other one? Like, whatever Corinne said, it's true. Like, it's clearly that Terry doesn't do anything. He just goes and asks other people what to do, and he writes down other people's opinions, and he does what people tell him to do. He doesn't have that initiative of working for himself or by himself. So he's not useful in the company at all. And then Phil, it sounds like he's trying, but it's not giving his, like, they don't see his best.
Okay. So even we can
Yeah.
see that Terry actually, cuts down into the other people's time by trying to tell them what you
Not
want
to tell
them
them,
to help them to do.
Yes. He's just taking people's time because he's just going and ask and ask and ask.
Yes. Okay. So with a legal obligation, based on what we have learned about employment at work, and what legal obligations could the manager have to Terry and Phil? Jessica.
For me, I think okay, sorry.
Go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, Joseph, go ahead. Joseph.
Thanks. So I think in terms of legal obligations, basically, yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Just can anyone
Your
hear
line is cutting
me?
up. Your line is cutting up. Okay, Jessica, continue.
So I know when I had to interview an HR professional at the beginning of the semester, the lady I talked with said that before they fire anybody, they take all their information and they go through each possible
Your line is breaking up, Joseph.
They go through each possible
Okay,
lawsuit to make sure that they can't, that they can't sue for age discrimination or for sexual discrimination or any of those type of things. And so I know it's like a big part of what HR does. I also know that a lot of times companies will have like severance packages. And so when they pay, when they fire an employee, they have to pay that severance package. And then like from the case from last week, they might have
Jessica,
a time.
I cannot hear you.
Wow.
Hello?
You can.
Yeah, I can hear you.
You can hear me? Marilla,
Yes, I
can
can
you
hear
hear me?
Mariela, can you hear Jessica? Mariela?
Now I can hear her. What
Okay.
was that?
Okay, sorry. But anyways, you might have severance packages. And then like from the case from last week, they had to give a notice before they could fire them. So there's a lot of different things that go into firing somebody,
Steps.
especially with the legal aspects.
Okay.
I just had something to say about this. My husband is a consultant for a company that is, I guess over the last couple of months they've been doing this. They had an employee who's actually the guy that my husband was working directly under, and they're now looking to hire my husband in his position. But they were done with him. Like this man, he wasn't getting the job done, but he'd been there for like 15 years or something. But it became very apparent that he couldn't do his job. They even hired my husband as a consultant. And my husband was basically doing his job for him, but then everything was passing back through this man. So it was looking like he was doing his job. if that makes sense. And so what they were done, they like needed to get rid of him. They wanted to fire him. So they go to HR, and he ended up being put on one of these performance reviews. But in the process of it, I mean, they were talking with my husband, and my husband was kind of put in the middle of the whole situation. And he, kept going to this guy saying, that they're pushing you out. Like you need to make a choice whether you're going to keep playing along until you make that final mistake that gives them the ability to just say you're done, or whether you should just quit on your own terms and be able to, and see if you can get a package deal of some sort out of it by quitting. And so I have been watching this whole, as I was reading this this case this week, I've been watching this happen to someone, through my husband's eyes, this whole performance review. And he wasn't given a performance review like this, like the article was saying. He was not given a performance review because they wanted him to improve. He was given a performance review because they wanted him out. Like they did not believe he could honestly do the job, and they didn't think that he would ever be able to do the job, but they couldn't just fire him outright because of all of the discrimination and everything through HR. So they went the performance review route as a way to push him out of his job. And they were successful in it because he eventually just got tired of constantly being put under a microscope and knowing that they were watching every little step he made. And he chose just to resign so that he didn't have to live the nightmare of like constantly being watched, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that personal example. Let's look at the ethical obligations. What ethical obligation does the manager have to carry and fill in terms of the company, other employees, or to yourself?
So
Marla.
I just wanted to add something real quick. So this is something that kind of came to my mind when I was reading this case, is because, sometimes a lot of things look like good on paper, but it's hard to take someone's livelihood away, and to just blatantly say like you're out of the job. And so I think it's important when you're looking at how somebody's doing their job or looking to fire somebody. I mean, you got to look at if they can do the job, but I also think you got to look at like what you can do for them. You know what I mean? Just because, I mean, I just, a healthy bottom line, I don't think means anything if you are pushing people, and if you're not a good ethical company who values their employees and tries to help their employees. So.
Okay. That's good.
Yes, and what you saying something about me? What you going to ask me something?
Yes, so I'm asking, what ethical obligation does the manager has to fulfill in terms of the company, other employees, and yourself?
Well, I feel like, first of all, I think the fact that you can take people's jobs, that you can obviously, like I think it was Corinne saying that, or Jessica, one of them, were saying that in order for you to fire someone, it's a long process, like trying to help that person to improve before firing them, or it's giving them a warning or something, just to, whether because you want that person in and out of the company, but also one of the ethical obligations I feel is that they need to be able to deal with the issue. They have to get rid of the person, trying to find someone that it's gonna be good to the company, because that's where it's not your company. You don't own the company, but you work for the company. And in the same time, you might be in a really sticky position because it's like you see this employee every day. You see them every day, and you see them struggling, or you see them succeeding every day. And then for me to say, hey, I'm sorry, I know you're a single mom, or I know you're going through this, or a dad, and you know you're a dad of 4, 3, 5, I don't know how many kids, and a wife, and I just have to fire you. I think it would be really, really uncomfortable to me to say that. But at the same time, like I said, I'm there to defend the company.
Okay, so looking at with this ethical obligation, the manager know that there are some people in the top management that say that Terry has been having a high scores in the past, and so firing Terry will become something out of the contest because the top management wanted to remain in the company because he came to the company through them. And the second one, when we look at Phil, one thing that he was sick at a point that he was sick, and if the manager decided to fire him, that is something that is going to give other employees some kind of a signal that, amen, if you are sick, you are going to be fired. So that might even lower the morale of the other employees, and that might be something disastrous for the company because the employees will not trust their managers anymore because they know that when you are in a difficult situation, the company might build a case to fire you. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at the analysis of a company's HR practices. Company in this case doing with its HR practices generally.
I think every day. I think okay. The question is, how well is the company in the case doing with its human resource practice generally? I think the fact that you have a human resource there to take care of like especially this case, like we're talking about this case, these people, Phil and Terry, right? I think they have the key of helping these people to whether to improve or to get fired, and it's gonna be used in the whole case. It's gonna be used because he is the one, or he is the one who makes that decision. The human resource manager is the one who actually made the decision what is good and what is not good for the company.
Okay. Correct.
Overall, I mean, they don't talk a lot about human resources, but they do talk about the process that they have of like ranking everyone and their performance. So I think that in general seems like they've got a good set of guidelines in place that each manager kind of ranks their employees, whether they're doing what they're expected or not doing what they're expected. And so I think that that's a good HR practice, so that if they look back on their record, they can see whether the employees have been performing as they should be, or if they've been lacking as they've gone along. Which I think that's the issue with the first guy. I can't remember his name, not Phil, but the other guy, is that his manager before was pushing him along, saying that he was doing a better job than he maybe was doing. And so I think that the practice, if the managers are following the protocol, then the practice that they're using is a good one.
Okay. So in terms of the hiring, I think at some point they have violated the hiring process, the practices, because the person failed the interview, but they still managed to bring him on board because there were some people in a top management put a blind eye on it. So I think that one is something that the practice is not actually good. If somebody has failed the interview, Why did you hire the person? So how did they manage to give people and let them have a feedback? Jessica.
So with this, well, so first of all, with the hiring process, I just noticed with the just with the company, it talked about how it was a lot of people from Microsoft, and so they adopted a lot of their employees. And I don't know, but I think it's important to know that you have to be careful with like getting into a routine and just doing the same thing, because there's a possibility that that's not the best thing that you could do for the company, or that's not the best way to hire somebody. I think it's always important to kind of reevaluate what you're doing and make sure that it's as productive as you want it to be. With that, so the main manager who was the perspective was in this case, I know that she talked about how that she wanted to give them feedback and tell them whether they're doing good, whether they're doing bad, whether they're in line for a position or not. And I agree with that. I think it's important to be direct with people and let them know where they stand with that. And I'm not saying that she wasn't, but I think it's important to note that there's a difference between being direct and or there can be a difference between being direct and being kind. I know she talked a lot about how she just wants to, express her mind and tell them exactly how it is and not, piddle around the subject or anything like that. But I think there is some value in telling people what they need to do, but doing it in a kind manner instead of just saying, you're doing horribly at this, you have to fix it. You know what I mean? And I think that there's a way to do that while still being direct and still helping people.
Okay, that is good. So for me, one thing that I like about is how the company is performing in terms of giving the employees know the clear picture of the company. That is something that is very good. When managers can actually call somebody, okay, let us sit down and know this is the bottom line that you are contributing to the company, and this is how well we are doing. I think that is a good practice so that people will actually be on their toes. If they are not doing well, you begin to where or how you can improve your performance.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
I really like the system in the military. They have this thing called console. You're gonna receive a console, whether it's bad or good. You meet with your team leader. My husband is a team leader right now. He's really close to become a sergeant, and he meets with his soldiers individually for a few minutes, and he gives them the feedback but it's called counseling. and after counsel is being given by because they did great on PT, which is physical training, or because they did perform well in whatever activity they had, or whatever grading they're doing, or like the soldier is showing up late, or things like that. They get a console, and all these consoles are documents written. So after my husband talks to the soldier and gives the console, my husband comes home and writes a paper, and he submits those papers to the army. So everyone has access, the soldier, but also like all those people on top of my husband have access of the console. And so I really like that because they receive the feedback monthly of what they're doing so good or what are they sucking at, and they have chances to improve. Even though in the military they have a contract for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, if they're not doing good, and that the contract can be broken because if this person have been receiving the same console at you have been late for this many months, for 6 months. And every single month that I have given you a consult, I have asked you to show up on time, to show up on time, to show up on time, over and over and over, and you're not doing it, I can break the contract and I can fire you. So
Okay.
I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea to know that you can get a feedback. As this guy said in the case, sometimes given feedbacks can be like kind of giving the hope that, oh, I'm gonna be going up on my position. I was going to say ranking up, but that's not a military. What do you call that? I'm gonna be
Promotion.
Promotion.
Thank you. So I'm gonna be promoted because they're giving me a good feedback, but it's not for that. Like, the point is to know that you're doing great and you can do better than you're doing. So I think that's great. I don't know. I just really like that you as a manager or you as an employee, you can get the feedback and you can be better than you're doing, or so you can keep your job, but also you can be promoted. So I think that's great.
Okay. So now we know that the company also developed the PIP, that is the Performance Improvement Plan, basically to actually help the workers and those who are not actually performing to be on their toes and so that they can improve upon their performance. And based on the PIP, if your name entered the PIP, it means that the company is also building some form of a case against you for firing. Okay? Because if you couldn't perform well after they have rated you below the 3.0. So do we agree with the way the company uses the PIP?
From a HR perspective, I think it's a good idea because, like they said, I mean, there's so many lawsuits that people can slam your company with that it's probably a good idea to start to build a case. Personally, I think it's almost like a little sleazy because when you tell somebody you're doing an performance process, your performance improvement process, it makes them feel like, okay, I'm going through this to get better, but I'm not like in danger of being fired. So maybe I would suggest maybe renaming it. On the other side of that, though, I think if they have something like that, I think it would also be important to have something like the mentoring program that we talked about with the Federal Reserve at Chicago, because some people, maybe they need like a little encouragement and they could do their job better instead of, going into this program and then just being fired.
Okay, thank you. So do you think that this manager can make good decisions about these two individuals, or does she seem to be influenced by biases that come? Corin.
I don't think that she's actually influenced by the biases. I think that she seems to have a pretty clear understanding of where these employees stand and what they're capable of doing. I think the issue comes with whether the management above her is willing to accept her opinions, I guess. Because it seems like she's taken the time to really understand like what they're doing and what they're accomplishing and what they're able to accomplish, and she's doing it seems in a very unbiased way. It's the outside influences, I think, that are starting to affect her opinions.
Okay, thank you. So now let us look at the final decision. So as each person in our group to commit a decision about what the manager should do in respect to Phil and Terry. For Terry, what are the alternatives to firing Terry? Marla.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, yes. I think that Terry. Okay, do I go with what?
Terry.
Okay. Terry. Yeah. I think that Terry should be fired. I know there's a lot of people that know him. I know he's a friend of the CEO, correct? And he knows people, and but he is not bringing anything productive to the company. He's just there, taking people's time, asking them what to do. He's not taking the initiative to do or to perform his job. And then Phil, after he got sick and all of that, it's pretty he wasn't the best, but he was working. But after he got sick, the case says that he hasn't been the same, that he's not really doing well physically, in his health, but also with his health, but also at work he's not being proactive. So I think the company was fair enough for giving him some time off while he was sick, and they were supportive. All of them went and worked on his yard, and all of them were like there. His job, he went back to his job, but he's not being proactive. So I think they should let them go, both.
Can I answer the last question on this? It says, are there any creative options that might work?
Yeah.
I was thinking about that, and I was thinking that in both cases, in the case of Terry, I think that firing Terry would send a message to not firing Terry would send a message to other people that it's okay to like not get your job done. So I think that that's an issue as far as the second question. And then with Phil, I think it's another hard situation because if you fire him, then people, like the thing was talking about, that the morale might go down because people really rally behind him. But as far as creative options, I think that like with Terry, maybe it's a matter of moving him to a different department, finding a different place for him, and seeing if under different management or in a different job within the company, maybe he could excel. Maybe there's something different that he could do. And then with Phil, since they kind of implied that he somewhat understood his job, just wasn't as good as they expected, maybe there's some kind of additional training that they could give to him to help him to be more productive. And in that way, you wouldn't have to fire either of them, but would be giving them an opportunity to improve themselves without having to let them go.
Okay, that is good. Okay, let's move on to the next question where we have a few minutes to wrap up.
Here.
So now, we now have the password. The password to read the other case is the TTCB. Now, let us go over the case just briefly for 2 or 3 minutes and see the manager, what was the outcome of the case.
So I'm sorry, but we are 15 minutes over, and I don't have my laptop in front of me. Have you read it? You could just quickly summarize it for us.
Okay, so what actually happened is that after the manager didn't fire both of them, he actually tell Terry to look for another job within the company, but he gave him some time, and Terry tried to look for another job, but because of the bad legacy, everybody knows about him because he was not doing a good job. So nobody is willing to accept him in any other department. So eventually, he decided to from the company. So he resigned from the company. But Phil, he was changed from that department. It was given put in another department. At some point, he was not other doing good, and he has to move. But he went ahead. But later on, he passed on. So that has been the outcome for the cases. So for me, what I think the manager actually did very well in terms of Terry. You don't want to create an impression that he was on the PIP list before moving, and they fired him. He tried to find a way to accommodate him and create a plan for him so that he himself will made up a decision whether to leave the company or not, and he eventually left the company. So now let us look at the final question. What can we learn from this case about making decisions concerning termination? Jessica.
So I think that we can see that from this case that when you are dealing with termination, it's not just a matter of like if they're doing well or if they're not doing well. There's lots of other decisions, and inputs that go in there with it. I think that the manager did a pretty good job of, trying to find a way around it and making sure that, the employees were taken care of. I guess what I can learn in future situations about this is just that you can be creative with it, and that maybe firing is not your only option to go with.
Okay. Corinne?
I think that we learned that in general that making a decision to terminate is not an easy thing, and that there's a lot of things that need to be considered and weighed, and ways of looking at each case individually to make sure that the decisions you're making are the right decisions, not just for the person involved, but the team and the company as a whole, how that decision will affect everyone involved, and how it will change the company and the team's dynamic, depending on whether they stay or go.
Okay. Marila?
Yes, I learned that if you're gonna be friends with the CEO, with the manager, or whoever in the company, I think you should put aside your friendship or relationship with them. I'm not saying that you're not allowed to say hi, but I think, like, I learned that if I'm gonna be friends with someone, that doesn't mean that my job is not gonna be as good just because I know someone. That I still have to push myself to keep my job, not because I just don't want to have a job just because I know someone, but because I can be useful in the company and I can perform my best.
Okay. So for me, I learn about in terms of making decisions concerning termination. It is important that termination is a very difficult situation. You are looking at other aspects of the constraints that you might face, either legally or also ethically, you have to be very mindful of the kind of impression that is you are going to create in terms of somebody from his position. And thinking about the future career, I believe that if as a manager, first of all, in my recruitment process, I'm not going to, let friendship influence me in terms of hiring people into positions in my company. Everybody must meet the criteria that is being set for recruiting. So if somebody comes in and the person doesn't meet our hiring requirements, despite that the person might be a friend to me, I still have to have that courage not to use any loose way to get that person to the company. It might create a problem and might not be able to perform very well, and it will become a very difficult issue for me because he's my friend. Firing him becomes another obstacle. So now we are come to the end of our class. Tomorrow we have our duties due. I started working on a few things, but a lot of assignment just part of me from other classes. So I will submit my own. I wanted to do editing and everything before I post it on the platform. Latest by tomorrow morning. So I hope everyone should get in whatever that we have to submit. Let us work on it so that we can get the assignment submitted.
What exactly the problem with it not being in the group paper is that we're not sure exactly what it is you're working on. So are you going to be submitting a problem and all of the solutions to that problem? Like, what is it that you have been working on?
Okay, so I'm working on the problem and the solution like what I did in the previous time.
So you were working on one problem and all the solutions for that problem?
Yes. Yes. So I will, yeah, I will send that one later one. I was actually using 2 laptops, so my second laptop, I have that work on this. So this one, I'm still just hanging on in the office. That's why I don't have this. So I'll forward that one.
Okay.
To you.
What can you just tell us what the problem is that the statement, so that we cannot make sure that the third one isn't the same problem? Does that make sense? Like, I have problem 1 already, so if you could tell us like what the problem is that you're addressing, so that the third problem can be started also, and it's not the same. Does that make sense?
I was started working on this the compensation. I started working on the compensation, and I wrote some few lines about the compensation, how they need to improve upon the compensation, and also kind of stumble this one. I think give you some little time. Within an hour time, I'll have to send you what I was working on.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want us to do double work. Does that make sense? Like, I don't want someone else to be working on the same problem. That's all.
Yes, because that happened in one of my class because I realized that 2 of us were working on the same thing. Later on, we have to come back and redo it again.
Right. So, yeah, because we do have the problem one that's already in there. Is actually someone else kind of, I think maybe Jessica had written the problem itself for last week, and I transferred it from last week into this one. And that's about improved compensation, but there's still solution 1 and solution 2 under that. So if you have some solutions for that, that's great. And then we still need to come up with what the second and third problem are that we're going to address. So if other people have input for that, that would be great also. I'm going to try to also touch on that again this afternoon and tomorrow. But
So what other problem do you think that so that we can talk about that problem so that everybody will start working on it now? That we need to include.
Guys, I have it because I'm taking another class and I needed to record stuff and I was like really busy. I haven't started working on my paper, but if you guys give me a subject, I will do it. If we're missing of something, so we don't do double work like you said, I don't pick a theme. Just tell me what to work and I can do it.
Well, do you want to pick? I'm sorry, it's noisy here. So we've done compensation. So over the last couple of weeks, the different things that we've been working on, we just need to pick another topic. So you can pick anything besides compensation that we've been studying. I'm trying to think of what else we did. I need to look at, like, I can't open it right this second.
Yeah. But just make sure that we get it into the document, because like last week, Marilla, when I was trying to finish it and you gave us our thing at the very last, all the stuff that you had talked about had already been done. So it's important for us to all work on one document, since we have to work together. So that
yes.
So Marilla, if you just open up the link, the Google Doc link, then you can go in and you can type anything that's not filled in already. You can work on. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So just open up that document, and in there, if you have a topic that we've been like, I don't remember what it was, but last week and the week before there was, we were talking about labor unions. So if you wanted to write, talk about the unions, that was a big thing that needs to be addressed for sure as one of our problems.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do that.
All right, that sounds good.
And we can also talk about the wages and the hours that the people are working. I think that is also something that we can also talk in this case.
Goodbye.
All right.
Okay. So if we all log into that document, I think we can all see what's been done and what needs to be done and keep working from there. But it is due, I think it's at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. So we don't have a whole lot of time, like just, like a little more than 24 hours. So it really needs to probably be addressed as quickly as possible so that all the editing and everything can be done before it gets submitted. We've done really good on both of our papers so far. So it'd be nice if we could just finish this one up, because I think the next one we do on our own. I thought she said at the group meeting, at one meeting at one point, she said she was going to give us more information, but I don't think we do it as a group paper next time. So I think she said she'd give us more information going forward for that.
All right.
Do we have a group meeting next week?
I think there's still a group meeting next week, if I remember correctly. So I don't know who else done what, but I'm willing to start the group meeting and do the group leader next week, I guess, if we need that.
Yes. Okay. So next week.
Everyone is done there too, so no one needs to do another one, right? Like everyone's done too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, then I'll go ahead and do it, because you don't have to submit a paper for doing it. I just have to read the leadership thing, so I can take care of that next week.
Thanks, Gwen.
All right. Okay.
All right. We'll see you all next week. Okay. Bye.
Goodbye. Thanks.
Bye. disappear.